Hello and welcome back to episode 13, the unlucky episode of the CarveCast. Now I do realise it's been a good few weeks, I think 3 weeks since I did my last podcast, and funnily enough, I left it on episode 12 and I was actually going to try and squeeze an extra episode in before I left because I've been away doing my ski instructor exams and I really didn't want to be back on the returning episode of number 13 telling you whether or not I'd passed, because I thought maybe it would bring me bad luck. But as it happened, I did pass. I am now a level 2 ski instructor with the IASI qualification, which is the Irish certification. It's a very good certification, equivalent to BASI and many of the others, and you can very easily actually change over to BASI if you want to. For those that don't know, these are just different sort of standards or groups of people, boards if you like, that offer up these ski qualifications, and they all vary a tiny little bit, but for the most part are quite similar, especially the Irish and the British ones. So I am a very happy Adam returning from this trip, because let me tell you, it was tough, and I'm going to go into that a little bit later on in the episode. But I've just come back from my trip a few days ago, in fact a week ago now. Time has gone extremely quickly this last week, so I've been catching up with work and various other things. And my ski trip involved a week in Hintertux in Austria, which is where I did my ski exams. And believe it or not, that was 6 days of constant exams. And when I say exams, I don't mean written exams, I mean practical exams on the snow. So skiing from early in the morning until the latest point in the afternoon when the lift's shut, every single day, 6 days a week, under the scrutiny of an instructor, is very hard work. I'm going to say extremely hard work. One of the toughest weeks I've done, especially from a skiing perspective. So yeah, that was good, but I will go into a little bit more detail about that shortly. Now, in addition to that, I also went to Val d'Isère for 5 or 6 days straight after my Hintertux trip. And I actually flew back to Gatwick on the Saturday, walked to the other side of the airport and got straight back on another plane an hour and a half later, and then went out to Geneva Airport. Now, originally, I don't know if I mentioned it on the previous podcast, or I don't know if it was actually done on a bit of a whim, but straight after my Hintertux trip, I had actually booked Zermatt for 5 days, and I was going to go and meet some of my friends out there, Jason and various others, and do some skiing in Zermatt. Zermatt, as you guys probably know, is definitely my favourite place in the entire world, and I was very much excited to go back there. But for those of you that don't know, which means you probably were under some kind of rock, during my week in Hintertux, this is now a couple of weeks ago, throughout the Alps, they had meters and meters and meters of snow. In some places, up to 4 meters. Not in the valley, but right up high. But on average, every single ski resort, give or take, throughout the Alps, got around 1 to 2 meters of snowfall to the valley. So right down into the valley, they were looking at, around about a meter's snowfall. Now, because it's so late in the year, and this is coming, towards the end of April, the snow is not dry and light, it's thick and heavy. So to get a metre plus snow of very heavy kind of laden snow is going to cause issues in lots of places, and that's exactly what it did, mainly because of the weight. They're used to getting large snowfall, albeit this one has been the largest in a long time apparently, but it's the weight and the timing that it came that caused all the problems. And Zermatt was quite literally wiped out. They had significant amounts of snowfall, and because you can only get in and out of Zermatt by train, they actually lost all electricity, all trains, and a whole bunch of other stuff that went along with it. So Zermatt was completely shut off, and by the time I'd finished my trip, they were still completely shut down with no electricity. The hotel had contacted me to say that I wouldn't be able to go. Lots of my friends there had said, there's no point coming here, everything's shut. So I had to drastically change my plans, and my second choice was Val d'Isère. So managed to get an incredible bargain on a hotel, actually an apartment in Val d'Isère, and I was literally the only person there. They said that as soon as my booking had finished, they were shutting down for the whole of the summer period, and I was the only one in the whole place. So that was pretty amazing. Stayed in a fantastic place, really enjoyed the location. And Val d'Isere, I love Val d'Isere. The town itself is lovely, lots and lots of shops, lots of restaurants, lots of really nice restaurants, lots of great hotels, lots of things to do. And it's just an attractive place. You know, when you go to a lot of these ski resort towns, they don't have much to them, and a lot of them aren't the most attractive as well. Val d'Isere is definitely up there with one of the more attractive, better ski resorts. Now, not only that, and more importantly, the ski area in Val d'Isere is stunning. It is absolutely unreal. They have a glacier section which has got immaculate snow, great slopes, really enjoyable place to ski, great lift system. And when I say this, I'm not exaggerating, I was one of very few people there. For those of you that follow me on Instagram and TikTok, and those details are in the show notes or the YouTube description, if you go onto my social media, you'll see some of the videos that I put out. There was nobody there. I was literally one of very few people skiing. There was no queues at any of the lifts. Most of the slopes I was on my own most of the time, and it was an incredible trip. I absolutely loved it, and it was much needed after a very tough week in Hintertux. So I'll cover that in a little bit more detail as we go through the show, but yeah, had an incredible time away. It's actually not my last ski trip of the year. In just over or under 3 weeks, I'm back to Hintertux to do a moguls training course with the incredible Gary Tumbaz. So I'm very excited about that, and that will be my final ski trip of this winter season, albeit coming towards the end of May, which is kind of peculiar, I suppose, to a lot of people. But Hintertux has snow on the glacier all year round for the most part, and I think it's even open for the most part all year round. So yeah, we will be skiing, or I will be skiing in Hintertux in the next few weeks towards the end of May. I think there's actually still spaces on the course, so if anyone wants to do that, just find Gary Tumbaz on social media, and there'll be links to the courses in there. So yes, let's go right back to the beginning of the trip, which was, like I say, Hintertux. So I left, I think, on the Saturday. Yes, I left on the Saturday, got a flight to Innsbruck. Most people who were on the course actually flew to Munich, which is probably a much easier place to get flights to, probably cheaper as well. But at the other end, you've got about a 2.5 hour car ride to Hintertux itself. So I opted for Innsbruck, and Innsbruck is only around an hour's drive from Hintertux itself. So got to Innsbruck, I'd pre-booked a hire car, and the reason I hired a car is just because it gives you a little bit of freedom to do things in the evenings and whatnot, and when you're on your own, you know, you might want that. And actually, my hire car came in, I think it was about 170 euros for a whole 7-day trip. And a lot of people that were there were actually paying more than that for a bus transfer or a coach transfer, which took significantly longer. So yeah, if you're gonna go to somewhere like this, it's always worth at least looking up the price of a hire car, because quite often it works out cheaper than getting transfers, even shared transfers. So have a look into that. I only had a tiny little Suzuki Swift, and I had to put all the seats down, take headrests off, take the back shelf off. I had to do loads of stuff to get my skis and everything to fit in there. And yeah, it was a push, but I did manage to get it in. So that was a good call actually, and worked out really well, because quite often in the evenings I did go to different towns. Meerhofen is only about 25 minutes away from Hintertux, and there's quite a few ski resort towns along that road that heads all the way up to Hintertux. So it just gives you that little something to do in the evenings, do a little bit of touring, a little bit of tourism, and check out a lot of the other places. A lot of the places have their own lift systems. There's loads of like mini ski resorts along the way. And if you look on the map, you'll see all of those different ones, and they're all part of the Zillertal ski pass. So you can actually buy that Zillertal ski pass that covers you for Hintertux and all of the others that I've forgotten the names of, unfortunately, along that road. And some of them really do look good as well. So I think for the price that you pay, around €300 for a week, to be able to ski all of those different places is exceptional. And if you don't have a car, don't worry, because the bus system there, they come quite literally about every 5 to 10 minutes, and that takes you all up and down that one sort of long road that links Meerhofen to Hintertux, and you can stop at any of those ski resorts along the way. So actually, if you're looking for a kind of varied trip like that, where you get to ski lots of different resorts in some really nice towns and check out lots of different places, that Zillertal ski pass is a very, very good one to do. And all of the little individual towns along the way have all got their own character and their own shops and restaurants and hotels. So quite a nice trip to do, I would imagine, would be to do something like that, especially probably in like January, when everything's sort of fully open and all of the slopes right down into the valley are open. Because it's Austria, all of the transport is amazing. Like I said, the buses, but also their gondola systems, their chairs, a lot of them are heated even. So yeah, overall it's a great place to go. But on to Hintertux. So I actually stayed at a place called, I think it's called Bad Hotel, and actually it's not the worst hotel in the world, but it's not the greatest, and it was literally a 2-minute bus ride from my hotel to the lifts at the bottom of the Hintertux glacier chairlift, gondola system that takes you up into the Hintertux area itself. Now, not all of Hintertux is glacier, only the very top of it is, so it's not like Kitzsteinhorn where pretty much the whole thing is on a glacier. Hintertux actually includes all of the slopes that come all the way down into the valley. And believe it or not, even with all that warm weather and being late on in April, the valley run was still open, albeit it was a bit of a slog because it was, you know, fairly slushy even from early morning, but it was still a nice ski actually all the way down. Not an easy ski, I must say. It was quite steep in places, and because of the slush and the moguls made it fairly difficult, but definitely something that was worth doing. And I would imagine in the winter time that is actually some really, really nice runs all the way back down to that base gondola in Hintertux itself. So if you do ever head out that way, yeah, go ahead, do that run all the way down into the valley. It really is quite a nice run, and at the bottom there's even trees, which is something you don't see much of in Hintertux. So yeah, got to the hotel, and the very next day on the Sunday started with the ski course. They call it exams because basically the teacher, in my case a guy called Scott Hammond, who's a really great guy by the way, works out of Norway. Really, really great guy, incredible instructor. Enjoyed my time with him massively. And just a really nice guy as well. Very personable, but also very professional. Clearly an amazing skier, an amazing ski instructor as well. And it was great to learn from him, not only how to improve my technique and how to be a better skier, but also how to be a good ski instructor and how to explain things to people in ways that I've not heard before. So I really enjoyed that whole process and was kind of hanging off of his every word, to be honest, trying to take in as much information as possible. He actually works out of Norway, like I said, and lives there and has done for many, many years. And he was telling me about the ski resorts in Norway, which sound incredibly interesting. And I think I'm probably going to book up and maybe go there for a few days this winter. Catch up with him and do a bit of skiing with him maybe, and also enjoy some of the skiing there that he was explaining to me that sounds absolutely phenomenal. So that's exciting. But yeah, the whole week we had the most varied weather. We started off on a bluebird, then the next day it was literally white out, then we had a little bit of sun creep in, and then we had quite a big downpour, and then we had a powder day, and then we went back to white out again. It was carnage. It was absolute carnage. And then in addition to this, in the afternoons, you know, you're looking at really adding in the lower areas, especially some serious amounts of slush. Sorry guys, morning Mr. Magpie. I have to say that because one is just literally sat outside my window here. So yeah, it was a very, very, very tough week, and Scott did an amazing job at kind of navigating us through it and getting the most amount of skiing we could in bad conditions. So with the fact that you're kind of being monitored the whole time, and not in a negative way, but you just are, that's part of what it involves, and the fact that you're sort of being sort of tested, and then you're also being tested with the weather, with the conditions, with the visibility, which was quite often not good at all. It was a very, very tough week. However, I enjoyed it thoroughly. I met some really, really great people. A lot of them are ski instructors at Hemel Hempstead, so I'm looking forward to going back there and bumping into some of those guys. Let's give some of them a shout out. We had Nick, another Nick. Make sure you get on social media, Nick. We had Jackie, Chelsea, Rosie, Duncan, Sandy. I've probably forgotten a couple, but for the most part, my group was made up of those people, and I enjoyed my time with them massively. On the last day, we all went out for a meal at an Asian restaurant in Meerhofen, which was really, really nice. If you ever go there, check that out. It's an Asian restaurant in Meerhofen. Really, really nice restaurant. And all in all, the week was a fantastic experience. Undoubtedly, I've come back a better skier because the conditions were so testing. And obviously I've learned a huge amount from Scott, and in fact the other students as well. Watching them and listening to them helps as well. And then what was fantastic was to take all of that new knowledge, all of that new ability onto my personal skiing in Val d'Isère. So did my exams from Sunday all the way through to Friday afternoon, went out for a meal Friday night, Saturday morning, got up, went to the airport, dropped my car off, flew back to Gatwick, walked a couple of minutes across the airport, got back on another flight a couple of hours later to Geneva. And like I said, originally I was going to Zermatt, but actually ended up changing that to Val d'Isère. And believe it or not, Val d'Isère is a fair bit further away from Geneva Airport than Zermatt is. So the drive to Val d'Isère was about 3.5 hours from Geneva Airport. And again, I hired a car and actually got it really cheap this time, even less than I paid in Innsbruck per day. So that was incredible, and actually a bigger car as well, a Renault something or other, which much more easily fit my luggage in. And off I went to Val d'Isère. And for those of you that don't know, Val d'Isère is also connected to Teens, so you can quite easily just ski over to Teens. It's not connected by a gondola or anything like that. You just quite literally ski over on chairlifts or gondolas, but you don't have to get like the big gondola like you do between Les Arcs and La Plagne. It's all completely interconnected. And the glacier in Teens, the ski down from that glacier at the very top of Teens is one of the best runs I've ever done skiing. It is an absolute joy, and it doesn't matter what is going on down in the towns in terms of the slushiness or the softness of the snow, which I don't mind, by the way. Up there, the snow is absolutely impeccable right the way through to the end of the skiing day at like 4:30. It's still as crisp and as perfect as it was first thing in the morning because of the altitude. So if you do ever go to Val d'Isère or Teens, make sure that if you go to Val d'Isère, you head over to the glacier area, and they've got a whole glacier area over there, and the runs over there are just beautiful. Loads and loads of different runs. And like I said, in April, late April, there was nobody there. I was very much, quite often, the only person on the slopes. And for anyone who skis, you know that is the perfect scenario. As I went over to Teens, it was definitely more busier in Teens, that is for sure, but still, you know, significantly quieter than it was when I went in March. And to be honest, the conditions, because they'd just had this huge downpour of snow just a few days before I'd arrived, were the best conditions of the year. Now, yes, in the late afternoon, lower down, you are getting some softer snow, but if you stay up high on either the Teens Glacier area or just below that, or even the Val d'Isère Glacier area, the snow is impeccable all day long. No softness, no slushiness, absolutely pristine snow. And this is late April. And like I said, because they just had that 1 metre or 2 metres in some place downpour of snow a few days before, all season long, the conditions were not as good as they were in late April. And it's funny because when I was in Zermatt late April last season, exactly the same thing. So don't discount April. You really would not want to book it in advance. You'd want to wait for that downpour that they always have towards the mid or end of April and then go. But if you do that, you're guaranteed a good time, and the slopes are empty, like absolutely empty. You'll have probably the best skiing time you've ever had, like I did. Absolutely sensational. So yeah, all in all, an incredible trip really. I thoroughly enjoyed all of it. Like I said, by the time I'd finished my exams in Hintertux, I was shattered, and I really needed that travel day in between actually to get myself back in order so I could enjoy then the few days skiing that I had thereafter. All the travel was fine. You know, some of the drive between Val d'Isère and Geneva was a bit long, but it is what it is. And yeah, overall, I'd highly recommend both places. A couple of comments about Hintertux, maybe on the sort of negative side. Even though, you know, it's got a great town, it's got some great après down at the bottom when you finish. It's got some okay-ish restaurants. The restaurants that are there, they are just your standard like beige food, you know, self-service restaurants. There really didn't seem to be anything in the way of like really beautiful kind of mountainside restaurants like you get in Trevinia or Zermatt, or even the Three Valleys. There really wasn't very much of that at all. You kind of had to eat at the self-service and that was it. So that's a little bit disappointing, because I actually think, you know, if that place had some really nice sort of mountainside restaurants that you could go to that had an a la carte menu and, you know, proper service tables and gave off a bit of that kind of Austrian vibe, then that would have really, really made that area a lot nicer and a lot more enjoyable. The skiing there is okay. I found it a little bit bland, if I'm honest. It was very, very samey. I'm guessing that's probably because it's like glacier skiing is kind of like that. The Valley Run was nice, but for the most part, it wasn't the most riveting place to ski. The conditions probably had a fair amount to do with that, but yeah, not my favourite place I've ever skied for those reasons. When you compare it to Val d'Isère, for example, where I went after, it's a whole different league of varied terrain, varied slopes, restaurants, the town, all of it is just on another level. So yeah, you kind of get what you get with Hintertux. I wouldn't ever tell anyone not to go there, because it's still an amazing place to ski. You know, I'm comparing it to some of the best ski resorts in the entire world. But yeah, for me, it was just a little bit bland all over, really. I was kind of a little bit disappointed with that side of it. But I must admit, it's kind of similar to when you go to like Kitzsteinhorn and you know, all those different kinds of places. They all give off that same sort of slightly bland vibe. But on the positive side, you're getting some of the best snow in the world for a huge percentage of the year. You know, the slopes quite often are huge, great big wide open slopes. Quite steep in Hintertux, a lot of it, I must say. There wasn't particularly a large amount of cruisers, if you like, but yeah, all in all, I'm looking forward to going back, and I would go back there again. But I think if I went back there again, I wouldn't want to do 6 days in Hintertux. I would do the tour across that area, like I told you about earlier, and do a lot of the different Zillertal ski resorts. So yeah, pardon me. That was that trip. It was a tough one, but a rewarding one. And I'm not looking to do my level 3 anytime soon, I can tell you that, because when I was looking at the level 3 guys, they are on a whole nother level to what I specifically was doing my level 2. And even though I got great feedback from my level 2 results, and I'm very grateful to Scott for doing that, really I was sort of pushing my luck a little bit in terms of being able to pass. And even though Scott said I was above the level required for all of it, I did feel that I was probably, you know, in the middle of my group, if not the sort of second third of it in terms of skiing ability. There was multiple people there who were much, much, much better skiers than me. And I think to get to my level 3, I'm going to need a good few years of training and practice and everything else, and maybe actually level 3 is a good way off, but probably something that is still on my radar. And in fact, to finish this, one thing I will tell you guys about is a guy that I talked to on Instagram, Simon. He's called the Ski Instructor, I think with underscores in between. I think he owns the PDS ski school in Zermatt and various other places, I think. He is actually running some race training in Zermatt in August and November. And if you find him on social media, you'll find all of the details about it. But I'm actually going to go on the one on the 24th of November in Zermatt because I was going to be there anyway. And it's a whole week, Monday to Friday, of ski race training on GS skis. And the training is for the entire week, and it's 295 Swiss francs, fully instructor led, on the slopes, race training. And he says for anyone, even if you've never done it before, which I haven't, he says it will massively improve your skiing and is a great way to improve your carving and everything else. So I've booked that and I'm going to go to that. So if any of you guys are interested in coming along and doing that, find him on social media or PDS Snowsport, I think it is, or it's PDS Ski Academy, something like that, in Zermatt. In fact, let me actually find it for you so I can tell you on here to make sure I give you the exact correct information. So yeah, PDS Snowsport Switzerland, and their username on Instagram is pdssnowsport.ch. Or if you wanted to find Simon Wells, his name is, his handle is @the_ski_instructor on Instagram, and I think on TikTok and various other places as well. So if you did want to do that race training, it would be great to meet some of you. That would be fantastic. And I think 295 Swiss francs for a week's worth of any type of ski training is incredible value. And if anyone is coming, let me know and I will take you out for a drink in Zermatt. I don't drink alcohol, but I will take you out for a Coke or whatever alcoholic beverage you would like. And I would look forward to seeing you guys there. So I'm going to end it here. I have sort of managed to squeeze this episode into a very busy work week. So I'll leave it there. And thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, especially if you've got all the way to the end. And I will be back soon with episode 14. And I know I keep saying it, but I've got a lot of amazing guests coming up as well. Just waiting for that season to fully shut down so people have a little bit more time to jump on with me. But I have got some incredible guests that are going to be coming on, from ski personal trainers in terms of fitness, to people that roam around the winter in camper vans and motorhomes doing skiing, to very high level BASI instructors and examiners. Maybe even Scott might come on and do it. I'm not sure if that's his thing, but maybe he would. That would be a really great conversation. What a great, knowledgeable guy. I've worked all around various different ski resorts and now living in Norway, which is quite spectacular. My doorbell has just rang. That is the end of the show. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you all in the next one.